Hello, I am Professor Kino and welcome to my Office of Cinematic Antiquity. Today we will be talking about... As you can probably tell from the aesthetic of my channel, I like Legos. I collected them a bunch as a kid and I still use them to this day. So a movie franchise like the Lego one seems like it should be right up my alley, and by Jove it is. While I had my doubts about the first film going into it, its charm, humor, and maturity really surprised me, and I thought it was one of the best films of 2014. And then the fact that its spin-offs, the Lego Batman movie and the Lego Ninjago movie, were both fun as well, my excitement for the Lego Movie 2, the second part, jumped to an 11. And now that it's out, did it live up to my expectations? Premise. Beginning directly where the first film left off, Emmett, Lucy, and company are forced to contend with a new threat. As time passes and the threat grows, Lucy gets kidnapped, and it's up to Emmett to rescue her and save the day once again. Writing. The talented duo of Phil Lord and Chris Miller returned to pen this film, and their style and feel definitely shines through. On the surface, of course, this is a kids movie. It's light, it's bright, it's fun. But what separates the good kids movies from the fine ones is how it also entertains the adults that go and see it, whether with their kids or, like in my case, by themselves. And Lord and Miller's script does that marvelously. It's witty, fast-paced, and full of humor that is aimed directly at the older crowds. Nothing inappropriate, mind you, just references and some tongue-in-cheek humor that will probably go over kids' heads while making adults laugh out loud, and many in my theater did. But this would all be pointless if the film didn't have a good story to sustain itself. And I am pleased to report that this film takes what its predecessor did and expands upon it, just like a good sequel should. It takes the revelation set up from the previous film, that the whole story is the imagination of a kid, and runs with it, and the final result is a beautiful story about growing up and the change that comes with that. A message that kids will be able to learn from, and adults will be able to respect and appreciate. And while this has been a recurring theme in some animated movies of late, such as Ralph Breaks the Internet, the Lego Movie 2 handles it the best. All the characters, despite some getting a little less screen time than they did in the first movie, feel true to who they are. They act and say things that are in character. The only negative I found was that the two spin-off films, particularly the Lego Batman movie, seemed to have no impact on this film whatsoever. There were just a few things that Batman does in this film, for instance, that completely ignores the revelations that he had in his own film. Nothing major, but as a fan of both films, I've noticed it. Nevertheless, this film returns us to the Lego world of the previous film, and also takes us to new Lego worlds in a wonderful fashion with humor for all ages, an excellent story, and a stupendous message, all wrapped up in the charm that makes the Lego movies just so much fun, and I was grinning from ear to ear through its entirety. Acting. Chris Pratt brings his characteristic charm to his role as Emmett. He is fun, relatable, innocent, and lovable. And while Emmett does make some questionable decisions, the writing as well as Pratt's performance end up making his arc feel natural and in character. On another note, Pratt also voices a new character named Rex Dangervest. He is an excellent foil to Emmett, strong, confident, charismatic. Pratt is able to show off even more of his talents through this character, much to us, the audience's benefit. As for the other returning actors, Elizabeth Banks returns as Lucy, Will Arnett as Batman, Charlie Day as Benny, Will Ferrell as President Business, Nick Offerman as Metalbeard, and Alison Brie as Unikitty, and they are all just as spectacular as Pratt. And then for the newcomers, the standouts are Tiffany Haddish as Queen Whatever Wanabe, Stephanie Beatriz as General Mayhem, Ben Schwartz as Banarnar, and Richard Ayoade as Ice Cream Cone, and they are also phenomenal. There isn't a single weak link in the entire cast. And as for the small cameos, they are also just so good. From Channing Tatum as Superman, to Jonah Hill as Green Lantern, to Jason Momoa as Aquaman, to Ray Fiennes as Alfred, to Will Forte as Lincoln, to Bruce Willis, yes, Bruce Willis as himself, and he is particularly hysterical. They are all just beyond entertaining. And as for the live action actors / family of the film, they are good, just not as good as the voice cast. Jaden Sand returns as the kid Finn from the first film, Brooklyn Prince of the Florida Project joins the cast as Finn's sister Bianca, and Maya Rudolph comes in as their mother. All three do a fine job, but they aren't really featured too prominently, so they just aren't as standout as the voice cast. Although I must admit that Will Ferrell does have some nice lines as the dad of the family, even though you never actually see him. All in all, everyone is great, although the voice actors stand out more than the live action actors. Character design. All the characters are really well realized. While being Legos, they are really simple, the hairstyle, the clothes, the costumes, etc. They look really nice. Each character is different and designed to reflect their unique personalities. Emmett's basic clothes, face, and hair reflect his everyman character, Lucy's dyed hair, hoodie, and dark gothic clothes reflect a rebellious personality, etc. Additionally, when characters come on that are just cameos, Bruce Willis, Aquaman, Abraham Lincoln, Gandalf, etc., they're all designed to look like perfect LEGO versions of these people/characters, and they did a great job at that. And last but not least, I want to talk about the character design of Queen Whatever Wanabe. Unlike the other characters, she is just an amorphous bunch of LEGO bricks with a face. Consequently, she can consistently shift and change, and it looks wonderful and is overall very creative. Set design. The beginning of this film ditches the primary metropolitan setting of the first film for a post-apocalyptic one. It feels very Mad Max, and I thought it looked great. Beyond that, however, I never found the sets as engaging as the ones from the first film. While the first had classic western sets, seafaring sets, and evil corporate sets, this sequel never felt as fun or unique. It had its moments, and while there were some fun planets, none of the sets were as memorable as the first films. Choreography. Just like with the other LEGO films, the action here is very creative and, because it uses actual LEGO pieces, very unique. It is also really varied. From vehicle chases to gunplay to fistfights, I found myself enjoying it all. There is also a great moment when the film does some live action, without being animated that is, and it is just two LEGO figures lightly smashing into each other, and remembering my childhood days when I played with my LEGOs all the time, I loved it. The only flaw, which is one that I have with all the LEGO movie franchise action, is that it stylistically tries to capture the stop-motion feel, and in so doing, the action can sometimes feel jagged and hectic. It's not impossible to follow, just at times busy and clunky. Although I have to admit that I didn't notice it here as much as I did in other films. So either I've gotten used to it after 4 films, or it was just handled here better. However, being a LEGO stop-motion film guy myself, if you haven't been able to tell, I appreciated the attempt to capture the reality of LEGO stop-motion. Cinematography. Very creative, from the shots of the various animated LEGO sets to the fun inclusions of non-animated LEGO sets to the music video-styled scenes. While I never found myself ogling at the framing, it is all colorful fun and just a pleasure to the eye. The only kind of flaw, as I mentioned before, is the framing of some of the action. It can sometimes be a little busy and hectic, although not as much as it was in previous films. Editing. Well done. Depending on the aesthetic of the scene, the editing actually changed subtly. During the musical numbers, it felt very music video-esque. During the action scenes, it felt very hectic, sometimes a little too hectic though. And during the live action scenes, it felt very basic. Nothing too crazy or unique, but overall nice. CGI. 95% of the film is CGI, and it all looks pristine. The fact that it aims to capture the LEGO brick film feel in the motions of its characters and props really gives the film, in fact all of the LEGO films, a really unique feel. And the fact that each LEGO piece on screen is a real LEGO piece, and that it seems as though all the characters and sets were physically built with LEGOs first so as to fully realize them, really helps to sell this as an actual stop-motion LEGO film. And the attention to detail here is great. It really feels like you are watching a film made entirely with LEGOs, and I loved it. Music. Regarding the licensed music and the background music, I have 2 words: catchy and creative. As for the licensed music, there are some great remixes and renditions of the original film's Everything is Awesome, along with some great new additions including Not Evil and Catchy Song.
Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when we're living our dream.
Queen, whatever, wanna be the least evil queen in history. And if you do not believe me, I totally won't imprison your family. 'Cause that'd be evil and not so, not me.
This song's gonna get stuck inside Joe. This song's gonna get stuck inside Joe. This song's gonna get stuck inside Joe. Hey. This song's gonna get stuck inside Joe. This song's gonna get stuck inside Joe. This song's gonna get stuck inside your head.
And as for the background music, it was always very fitting and in many ways felt like it was referencing other films. For instance, I constantly felt that the music playing during the space scenes was very Star Wars. From slight riffs here to some crescendos and fanfare there, it felt familiar, but in a purposeful and somehow fresh way. Direction. While Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the directors of the first film, stepped away from the director's chair for the sequel, they stayed on as producers and writers while giving the directing reins to Mike Mitchell. And Mitchell did a stupendous job. The film looks and feels very on par with the original while adding in its own additions to set it apart. By staying true to the characters of this world, Mitchell, Lord, and Miller were able to move the franchise forward great strides in tone and story, and the final result is a great follow-up to a wonderful original film and an excellent standalone adventure in and of itself. My enjoyment. I had a great time with this film. Returning to Emmett's world was just as rewarding as going there the first time. This is a sequel that feels equal in quality to its predecessor, and that is no easy feat, particularly considering the quality of the first film. I had such a great time watching the Lego Movie 2, the second part, that it has actually made me excited for the prospect of a third film because I believe that there are still so many stories that can be told within this world. Recommendations. This is a great time out for the whole family. From 5-year-old kid to senior citizen, you will be able to enjoy this movie. It is just that great. And I recommend it to anyone who is looking for a fun, lighthearted, yet surprisingly deep, and entertaining time at the movies, especially if you are someone who also liked the first Lego movie. Just go and see this one, I doubt that you'll regret it. Thanks for watching, I hope you liked it. If you did, leave a like. If you want to add anything, feel free to leave a comment. If you want to see more, please subscribe. I am Professor Kino, and I look forward to our next discussion.